We're also doing this. It's still the early morning. I've got my coffee here. Also working with LK Formation in this stream, bringing tailor-made solutions to your business. Okay, we got that out of the way. Let's jump in straight away this morning with what we're going to look at. So we're going to look at various different things. Let me count them all for you. We're going to look at what's in the newspapers. We're going to look at how you can improve your business expressions and so on. So let's have a look. If I get them over here, we're going to be looking and going over business English phrases, leadership qualities. We're going to look at our word of the day today. We're going to look at some business quotes. Okay, so let's get into what was happening when we were asleep. Okay, I'm still waking up, it seems. Okay, so Donald Trump, Finland, Isimiaki, Beluga, the news of the night, what happened? Okay, I hope you're all doing very well today. I'm going to go through a bit of the news, a bit of things to help your business skills, vocabulary, pronunciation, etc., just to start your day. It is the summertime here in the Northern Hemisphere anyway, and we're going to try and just keep it relaxed and as interesting as possible. So here we have Donald Trump, former president of the United States. And what happened here? The US Justice allows the House to access Trump's tax returns. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself just a bit smaller over here, so I'm not going to block as much of the screen. So I'll be down here in the corner. And here we go. The US Justice allows the House to access Trump's tax returns. Okay, so perhaps Donald Trump is trying to hide his tax. The Court of Appeals for District of Columbia ruled on Tuesday that the request of the Congressional Committee was justified in the context of its work, considering that it did not violate the principle of separation of powers and that it respected the American Constitution. So perhaps Donald Trump in a bit of hot water, as we say, a bit of trouble. This guy is a magnet for trouble, it seems. But he's very popular with a lot of people and he's very unpopular with a lot of people. Moving on then, contrary to custom, the Republican refused to communicate these documents and engaged in a legal showdown which lasted 19 months after the end of his mandate when he was president. The commission hopes to receive the documents immediately, but it is not yet known how long the procedure could take because Donald Trump can still appeal. Okay, an appeal is when you lose a court battle and then you go to the next level. And normally when you appeal, you're appealing on a legal technicality. So let's see what happens there. That is from ABC News. Over to the next part. I'll make it a bit bigger for you guys. Zoom out just a little bit. Okay. The Finnish parliament targeted by a cyber attack, according to the Finnish public radio and television site. I can't even pronounce this. Yle Uutiset. Okay. I never do justice to these foreign language names, but I try my best. A group of Russian hackers claimed responsibility for the computer attack that began on Tuesday on its Telegram channel. In April, the websites of the Ministry of Defense and the Finnish government had already been subject to cyber attacks, but their problems were quickly solved. Finland's Security and Intelligence Services, SUPO, warned that in May that Russia had the will, they wanted to influence Finland's NATO candidacy process and that various attempts were to be expected. Okay, it's very often, I don't know about whichever country you live in, but generally the cyber attacks always seem to be blamed on, let's say, Russia in general. Cyber attacks are blamed on Russia. Well, this one, the Russian hackers claimed responsibility, but generally Eastern Europe and Russia are blamed on cyber attacks. Moving on down, death of the Japanese fashion designer Issey Miyake. The famous designer, whose career spanned more than half a century, died on August 5th at the age of 84, an employee of his office in Tokyo announced on Tuesday. He settled in Paris. To settle is to live and stay. He settled in Paris in 1965, forging a particularly strong link with France and establishing himself worldwide as an inventor and artist. Born on April 22nd, 1938 in Hiroshima, Issey Miyake was 7 years old on August 6, 1945, when the United States dropped the first atomic bomb in history on his hometown. He survived, but his mother died 3 years later from radiation. He had remained very discreet about this tragedy because he did not want to be labeled as the designer who had survived the atomic bomb, notes the Japanese channel NHK. Okay, like I mentioned yesterday, if somebody close to you in the English world, if you know anybody and you hear that someone belonged to them has died, you will say, my condolences, and may he rest in peace. These are there's many ways, of course, in that you can say, give your condolences. You could say, I'm sorry, may he rest in peace. I'm sorry for your loss. So we're sorry for the loss of this Japanese designer, Issey Miyake, and may he rest in peace. Moving on. The beluga lost in the Seine has been taken out of the water. Okay, so this is a type of whale, I believe, which usually lives in the Arctic or subarctic waters, was extracted overnight from Tuesday to Wednesday from the loch in which it was located in Saint-Pierre-la-Garenne. The animal must be transferred to a refrigerated truck which will transport it somewhere in Calvados. So it was a whale which got trapped in the river. They isolated it, they took it out, and it will be placed in a pool of salt water which will allow him to be watched, and they will try to heal him. The operation to bring it back to sea, if it is out of the ordinary, is not without risk for the beluga, already weakened and sensitive to stress. My experience in watching these, I don't know if you watch these, generally it happens every now and again, a whale gets stuck. If it happens in the UK, in London, the whale's going to die. That's what happens generally there. Anytime a whale gets stuck there, or a dolphin or something, they do their best and the whale dies. Hopefully this one will make it to the sea. Hopefully. Please God. Somebody says he could die now during the handling, during the ride, or at point B, she warned Radio Canada. On Tuesday, France had no expertise in the observation of belugas because none have ever been observed so far south. Well, let's hope for the best for the beluga. Let's hope we can make it to the sea. Often these animals get lost in the rivers. We will come back to the International Post and check in on some of the other stories. Maybe we'll check in on some culture. We'll see what's going on in different areas. Now I'm going to go back. We're going to look at the top from Preply. These are business expressions. So we went through cut corners, back to the drawing board. Okay. Call it a day we had. Okay, and let's briefly say what these are, of course. Cutting corners, not spending so much money, not spending so much time on something. You're cutting corners on a project. Call it a day is when you are going to finish work. Okay, let's call it a day, shall we? Workflow is how much work you have, good or bad. Touch base, get in contact with your colleagues or somebody. Reach out to get in contact as well. Not so much a colleague. Somebody that can help you. Keep me in the loop, keep me updated. Drill down into something. Like this expression, drill down, is like look into something and explore it more in depth. As of yet, we said not yet. Not at the moment. At the moment. Forward planning is planning. At the end of the day, we did the best. So ultimately, was that one? I hope you guys maybe tried to use this ultimately or at the end of the day. Proactive. Okay, it gets overused, but take the initiative. Action points. I came out of the meeting with the 3 action points. Things you need to do. Are they actionable? After a meeting, you can take action. That was it. Action points are things you take away from a meeting. Actionable. Okay, so we're down here to cut to the chase. Okay, let's cut to the chase. Are you going to finish the report on time or not? Like, let's get to the point. To cut to the chase means get to the point without wasting any time. It was first used in the movie industry to mean skip to the car chase, the most interesting in action. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, that's interesting. Because in most movies, at some point, you get to the action scene, there's a car chase. Let's skip to the car chase. Okay, so let's get to the point. Let's cut to the chase. Very common in English, and you will hear it. So if somebody's going around and around, another one is circling the plug hole. If you know, if you have a bath in your house, or you're familiar with a bath or a sink, and the water goes around, it's circling the plug hole. So you want to circle the plug hole. You want to cut to the chase. All right, let's get the ball rolling. Hopefully we can get the ball rolling on the new pitch next week. To get the ball rolling means to get started on something, to begin making meaningful progress. Okay, that's good. Let's get the ball rolling. Let's start. Okay, it's a useful one. Number 17, stay ahead of the curve. We need to stay ahead of the curve, otherwise our competitors will wipe us out. Something, for instance, a product or company that is ahead of the curve is more advanced than others of its kind. The curve refers to a line on an imaginary graph that shows the growth of a trend. For instance, Instagram was ahead of the curve in anticipating how much people would enjoy sharing pictures of their lunch. It just means to be ahead of other people, ahead of the curve. To stay ahead of the curve is to maintain any advantage you have gained over the competition. It also sometimes used more generally to describe the need to work hard to avoid losing progress. Okay, so if you're trying to be motivational to your team, say, okay, team, let's stay ahead of the curve. We are already ahead. Let's work hard to maintain our advantage. Moving on. Due diligence. Okay, the pronunciation here of DUE, your choice, do or Jew. On the British side of the Atlantic, it will be J, like my name, James, J, D-U. I mentioned this in a stream earlier. Always saying DU like J during the week. Due diligence. We've done our due diligence and none of the other contractors seem more qualified. Until very recently, due diligence was a term only used in legal context. In a legal context, it used to describe the action that is considered reasonable for people to take in order to stay safe and on the correct side of the law. But in business jargon, due diligence refers to the necessary research behind a good decision. If you have done your due diligence, then you have given an issue the attention it deserves and weighed alternatives to the solution you intend to take. Okay, so you're looking into it, you're doing your research behind, and you're making your decision. Okay, you've done your research. Let's try and get it down to one word if possible. And due diligence is research, necessary research. Boom, we're on to the next one. I'm going to do up to 20 today. Best practice. The CEO decided to clear desks let's start again. The CEO decided that clear desks are best practice. I uploaded it following the SEO best practices. So a best practice is a method accepted to be the most effective means of doing something. They can be industry-wide or specific to the company. Many businesses encourage employees to follow a set of best practices described in a company handbook. That is the rules, procedures, and techniques used in a day-to-day operations. So yeah, that's what I would say it is. Yeah, if you keep in your mind the rules, procedures, and techniques to use in day-to-day operations. Okay, and finally, upskill. I hope these are being of use to you. You can always go back to have a look. We chose to upskill a junior employee rather than hire someone senior straight away. Okay, that's interesting. Let's have a look what it means. This business term is another formal but ungrammatical replacement for an existing word, to train. Okay. To someone, upskilling sounds more youthful than training. To some, upskilling, yeah. Yeah, it's a useful way to say to train. Often you can use the phrasal verb to train up, to train somebody up for the job. But upskilling sounds like a business buzzword. Upskill. Okay. So that's where we're going to leave that for. Well, let's just recap quickly. We had cut to the chase, get to the point, get the ball rolling. Let's start. Stay ahead of the curve, maintain your advantage. Due diligence, do your research on something. Best practice is the code or the rules and procedures that you follow. And upskill is to train. Some nice words there from this is from Preply. Okay, and we're going back to the news. What have we got here today? Boris Johnson's in the news. Freedom of expression in Tunisia. Transport pass at €9. The German government, United States. Oh, let's have a look at sport here. Serena Williams announces her retirement from the sport. Okay. Serena Williams. In the cover of the next issue of Vogue magazine, the American tennis legend says she wants to open a new chapter in her life. Serena Williams is putting an end to her legendary tennis career and announces that she will be retiring from sport in the coming weeks, probably after the US Open, announces the American magazine Forbes. Serena Williams really suffered in her career after having a child. And I suppose this is a taboo topic that you guys can, that way a lot of people need to talk about, is women in many places in the world have to make a choice. Are they going to continue with their career, or are they going to have children? Because perhaps in the first world, it's still an ongoing battle in many countries. There are women have to, what we say is, when you have to give up something, is you sacrifice something. So a lot of women have to sacrifice their careers in order to have children. Because in those countries, for example, childcare is awfully expensive. I mentioned it in a podcast a while ago, how expensive childcare is in a lot of countries, forcing women to give up their careers to take care of children. School doesn't begin until very late, for example, in some countries. So childcare is very expensive. School doesn't begin until 5 years old in many countries. Here where I live, a lot of people complain about the system here in Spain, but it's actually a lot better than many countries. Here you can send your child to a kindergarten or a creche from a very early age. You are supported by the government. You are entitled here in this country to work part-time. It's a legal right. Whereas, which means on the other hand, in many other countries, let's say the UK, you don't have this right. Childcare, as I said, is extremely expensive, the price of your mortgage. And your child is going to go to school at the age of 5. So Serena Williams, on the other hand, she suffered physically, and she was never the same after having a child. So let's go on. Serena Williams is putting an end to her. Yes, this is from Forbes. The rumor had been circulating for some time. The interested party confirms it on the cover of the September issue of Vogue. The American magazine published it in its pages, a text signed by the champion, an icon of women's tennis. Confident that she never liked the word retirement, Serena Williams, who will soon be celebrating her 41st birthday, declares that it's time for her to turn the page. It's also very difficult to be 41 and to be at the top of your game, to be especially in tennis or in any sport, so competitive. I don't want it to be over, but at the same time, I I'm ready for what's next. I wonder what will be next for Serena Williams. Probably being a pundit, somebody who's on television making comments. My whole life has so far revolved around tennis. My dad, who was my first coach, tells me I was 3 years old when I first picked up a racket, but I wonder if it hasn't happened, if it hasn't happened earlier. Okay, so she's been in the game so long. The countdown has begun. She points out that if I never wanted to choose between sport and family. Hearing her daughter Olympia confide that she would like to be a big sister made her think twice. So is she considering having a second child? Serena's farewell, that's a goodbye. I'm terrible at goodbyes. This is when you say goodbyes, when you're saying goodbye to people, say I'm terrible at goodbyes. You're not very good. You get emotional. Fashion's new word. Okay. Here's her the Instagram post from Serena Williams. And then we move on. On Instagram, the former world number one summarizes her final decision as follows. In life, there are times when you have to choose to take a new direction. It's difficult when you love what you do, and that's my case for tennis. But today, the countdown has begun. I have to focus on my life as a mother, on my spiritual goals, and on finally discovering a new Serena. Different, but just as exciting. I will enjoy the coming weeks. Well, she's a multi-millionaire, so it's fine. She can retire. She has a lot of money. She can retire. She can do exactly what she wants. And she's had a great career. She's been an inspiration, I suppose, to a lot of people. So good for her. The US Open is scheduled to take place from August 29 to September 11. The American has won it 6 times in singles, including the first time in 1999 at the age of 17. She has one of the finest records in women's tennis with 39 Grand Slam titles in total in singles and doubles. Okay, so that's Serena Williams. She is retiring. Okay. Now, let's move on over. This is something I saw on LinkedIn yesterday. And, yes. So it's about leadership and the qualities that it takes to be a leader as opposed to being a boss. So let's have a look at this. Differences between a boss versus a leader. Your opinions are very welcome here. A boss drives the employee, whereas a leader coaches them. So I think here we're going to see the boss. You don't want to be a boss. You want to be seen as a leader. So let's see if you can analyze and see yourself in any of these, and can you change yourself, or if you agree or not. So a boss drives the employee. A leader coaches them. A boss depends on authority. A leader on goodwill. I'm your boss, you need to do what I do. Whereas I want to be a leader for you, and the employee should be happy to work with their leader, to work for their leader. A boss inspires fear. A leader generates enthusiasm. Your boss says, I need this, I need that, blah, blah, blah. A leader says, we, thinking of the team. A boss will place blame for the breakdown. A leader fixes the breakdowns. Maybe there's a breakdown in communication if you're doing a project with some clients. So perhaps there is a breakdown in communication, let's say, with some clients. There's some problems, some cultural differences. And the leader will fix those breakdowns, whereas the boss will say, who is in charge there? She will say, we need to know who is responsible for this. A boss knows how it is done. A leader shows how it is done. Okay, have you ever had that boss or do you have a boss at the moment who wants you to be like them, but doesn't want to show you how to be like them? Expects you to know what they know rather than showing what they know. Are you one of those people yourself? A boss uses people. A leader develops people. The boss takes credit. The leader gives credit. So if you do well on a project, the boss will take the credit and say, yes, that was my project. Whereas a leader will say, we all worked well on this. This was the software team. This was the programming team. This was the marketing team. We all worked on this together, giving credit to, when you give credit is you give, say, it was them who did it. It was that group who did it. And down to a boss commands, a leader asks, a boss says go, and a leader says let's go. So I wanted to look at that. So get your opinion on what you think. You are I'm more than happy to look at your comments. You can make a comment below. And if you're on YouTube as well, I'm streaming onto YouTube as well, you can make a comment. Okay, so let's go back to the newspaper. We're going to go into, let's have a look at some, shall we look at some science? Let's. We can look at the most read. Okay. Why in the Arab world does obesity affect women more than men? Have you noticed over time, as you get older, that people are becoming heavier? And do you remember the word we had yesterday that was slang? You could say people are heavier, or people seem to look more thick. Thick also is, it's not necessarily, if you put on a bit of weight, you might look okay. You're a bit thicker. You're thick. Some people like the way people look. Rather than skinny, they prefer people to be a bit thick. But it's slightly overweight. Why in the Arab world does obesity affect women more than men? When you're obese, you are a lot bigger. Less active and practicing less sport, women are more exposed to obesity than men in the Middle East and North Africa, where overweight is a real public health problem, according to The Economist. Okay, and here we have a picture of the Miss Arab plus size 2015 or 2015 contest. So there was actually recently a controversy in this country, because there was a poster with overweight or obese or thick, and it was women, and it was being the title was to be body positive. So there was women of all different body shapes. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel ashamed of your body while you're on the beach this summer. Should these women be body positive with bodies like this? Should they be shamed? What do you think? And why? What we're looking at here is why these women are overweight or obese. So worldwide, it is estimated that 15% of women and 11% of men suffer from obesity, in that their body mass index, BMI, is equal or greater to 30 kilos. In the Middle East, the gender gap is still wide, according to The Economist. In this region, 26% of women are considered obese, compared to 16% of men. Why is this disparity greater in the Arab world than in other places elsewhere? First, because of unemployment, explains the British magazine. In Arab countries, only 20% of women have paid employment, according to the World Bank, while jobs in health, education, or catering sectors, unlike in other regions, are developed to men, and household chores reserved for foreigners sum up the weekly. Okay, right. So foreign people are doing the housework. Women, let's go back. Men are more visible in the workplace. This means that most Arab women spend most of the day indoors. So they're not outside, they're spending their time indoors, and they're spending their time indoors when you work in an office, you're indoors. When you're in your house, you're indoors, and then outdoors is outside. Let's move on. Sport, junk food, and Rubens. At the same time, women do little sport. It's interesting because I moved to Turkey, to Istanbul in 2012, and it was noticeable for me. I wouldn't exactly say Turkey is the Middle East, but it's kind of a bridge between Europe and the Middle East. But it was noticeable that people did less exercise. It was noticeable. But men are definitely more visible on the street, more visible in shops. And I would agree, women tend to stay at home more, be at home more. And it's understandable that doing sport is not, it's kept for the younger people, I suppose. Let's carry on with the article. At the same time, women do little sport. Small, the little girls play with the boys, but when they reach puberty, it becomes frowned upon. Yeah, that's quite, I would agree with that. After a certain age, well, after a certain age in many countries, girls tend to become, here it says, teenage girls become more sedentary, less sporty, and socialize with friends in private places, often at home. Often physical exercise is limited to strolling through shopping malls. Some women would like to play sports, but, says The Economist, few gyms reserved for women are mainly found in large cities, and harassment in the street often makes jogging unpleasant. Yes, I did hear this, and we take Istanbul to be one of the more modern cities that I do remember that, and it might sound strange, but now it's changing. It definitely is changing. Cycling is becoming more common. But when I moved there in 2012, cycling was, you just cannot be on, it couldn't be on a bicycle on the streets. And running was so common here, so common in Europe, so common in the States, but there it was just a bit strange. So even men running, so for exercise, so women running would, they would be subject to harassment. I heard stories of being followed when they're running. And I do remember there was a marathon in Istanbul, and it seemed a bit strange for people. It wasn't as serious as here. It just seemed a bit strange. It definitely is changing. It's changing rapidly, but perhaps in other countries in the Middle East, they're still a bit behind. And then, according to some women in the region, many Arab men prefer them to be the Rubens. Okay, this is in relation to the painting, whose paintings are full of plump women. So we have many words now from yesterday to describe being overweight. You have plump, thick, fat, obese. Plump is, again, where you're overweight. If you imagine the paintings of the famous painter Rubens, where the women they're more thick, they're plump. Pleasantly plump is a nice way to say you are nicely overweight. In Iraq, for example, another one, curvaceous. The curvaceous actress Enas Taleb, whose photo illustrates in the article, is considered an ideal beauty. Okay, so what we're going to have to do here is I'm going to have to jump in, and we're going to have to find Enas Taleb and find images of this. Okay, so this is Enas Taleb. You can see yes, especially here. So she's quite plump. She's overweight. She would be considered overweight, obese, but she is curvaceous, and that's what she looks like. She is considered an ideal of beauty. So more broadly, food is a real problem in the Middle East, where junk food has been established for several decades, and where meals are often made up of rice or bread, which are very rich in carbohydrates. In Egypt, the population derives 30% of its calories intake from bread, which is heavily subsidized, so it's cheap. With the exception of some Pacific islands, it is the country with the highest BMI for women. Okay, so Egypt, yes, and Pacific Islands, the women. Let's have a look here. Pacific Island. Women. I hope it doesn't give me anything bad here. Okay, so when you look at Pacific Island women, as you can see this woman here, they're a bit curvy. They're not thin. So look here. Yeah. They're well known for being big boned, curvaceous, thick, plump. It's the typical big boned. Often we'll say big boned. I like to use that expression. Okay. BMI, body mass index. What do you guys think? Did you do Operation Bikini this year? Is it necessary? Should you be body positive? How do you feel about it? All of this has serious health consequences. In 2019, The Weekly explains 8 of the 11 countries with the highest share of deaths attributed to obesity were, wow. Okay, so the Arab countries were, so 8 of the 11 countries with the highest share of deaths attributed to obesity were Arab countries. Okay, so they have a real problem. I think it is a situation where it's seen, as they're it's just, they don't do it after teenage years. They just don't do any sports. The article caused reaction, in particular Enes Taleb, who announced that she was going to file a complaint against The Weekly for having used a photo of her as an example of a fat woman in the Arab world. So she's not happy to be labeled as fat, reports her side of the news. Okay, the actress considers this article to be an insult to all Arab women. Okay, do you agree? Is this article from The Economist an insult to women? Because this is a situation now. Are they fat? Fat seems to be a word that's not... People don't like the word fat. It's more curvy. Something, instead of fat is seen as a negative word, whereas curvaceous is seen as a positive word. But essentially, is it healthy? And this is a big debate point at the moment, and it'd be interesting to see your comments here, because we have this idea of body positivity. Be proud of who you are, but is it healthy? Are you going to be body positive, but you're going to suffer from you can suffer from different types of illnesses? I think it's quite taboo now in the Western world to talk about this. There's a lot of focus on this. Instead of saying fat or obese, it's like curvaceous, body positive, love who you are, be yourself. But does it hide the fact that you're not healthy? You can be body positive, but it doesn't mean that it's healthy. What do you guys think? Let me know. And okay, we're going to move on now, and we're going to look at our word of the day. Okay, so we're going to go into idiom of the day, which is your bread and butter. Very useful in the business world as well, meaning your bread and butter is your livelihood, the source of your income. So if you're talking about, if you run a business, who or what is your bread and butter? What are you selling most? What gives you your income, your day-to-day income? So often we'll talk about bread and butter clients. Okay, these are the clients that come back to you often more and more. Bartending is my bread and butter at the moment, but I'm trying to get into acting. So it's bartending, working in a bar is what gives me my money, but I'm trying to get into acting. The conditions are bad, but this work is their bread and butter, so make sure that the workers have other jobs before you close down the factory. Okay, this is what gives the workers their money. Don't close the factory before. So often I would say, in a business sense as well, it's very useful to talk about this. What gives you your money? Okay, what clients? Where does your income come from? Excellent idiom. Bread and butter. Phrasal verb, see through. Meaning, if you see through something or someone, you realize that you're being deceived or tricked, that you aren't fooled. I got an email from someone claiming they had $1 million and needed my help to get it into the country. I saw through the scam and deleted it. The scam is a type of trick. Often you get these emails from certain countries. I'm a prince, I need to put money in your account, but first you need to give me your account details. It's a scam. It's a trick. It's a scam. And when it's obvious to you, you can see through it. You can see through the lies. My friends told me I'd won the lottery, but I saw through their little joke straight away and laughed. Okay? So when you can see through someone's lies, you can see through somebody, you know that you're not being fooled. You can see through it. You can see through them. A good one, used very often in English. Try and use it today. Pick something from today. Anything you've learned from today, try and pick something and try and use it. Just one thing. If you do one thing a day, it will help you. I'm trying to do this myself in Spanish. Try to learn just one new word a day if I can. Often I forget it, but then I'll hear it or I'll recognize it and it will come back to me eventually. Or maybe around the third, fourth or fifth time that I see it, I'll start to remember. Okay, let's go back and we're going to look at the slang of the day, which is can. This is more of an American term and it means prison or jail. My rich uncle has been convicted of tax evasion. Is your rich uncle Donald Trump? And he'll be in the can for the next 3 years. So a lot of people have slang terms for prison. I can't think of any at the moment. The can. Sometimes doing time. To be in prison is doing time. Poor old Jimmy has spent most of his life in the can and he won't be getting out anytime soon. So the can is a nickname. Slang for. I looked at the saying. It's not very good, so I'm not going to go into that. But I am going to go back to the International Post. That was an interesting article. I think it raises a lot of debate. This one about obesity. It's very... it's in the headlines a lot at the moment. As you can see, it's the second most common. The heat wave is the most common. Penalties, drought. Okay. Monkeypox, we looked at that before. Climate, pollution. A lot of bad news. A lot of bad news. I don't want bad news all the time. I think we deserve a bit of good news, don't we, guys? Let's go in and look at a bit of culture. We read about Serena Williams. Australia, we saw that, yeah. Literature, okay. Shall we look at some literature? Ooh. Debate. The Lazy Gold Medalist. From the street art, we read that. Okay. Let's stay on the topic of food. Are our favorite foods left wing or right wing? Okay. Our eating habits. This is from El País in Spain. Our eating habits and our way of designating dishes are closely linked to our political affinities. Food has never had such symbolic or ideological weight, explains El País. This is a good word to use here because weight, for your weight, how heavy you are, but also ideological weight. It's a double meaning. Okay, a beefsteak served at a restaurant in Madrid. Jesus Contreras said that when he first visited Peru many years ago, he was served brown sugar with his coffee. The academic I was accompanying looked at me and said, "That's worthy of a third world society." Interesting. So brown sugar with your coffee, what does that mean? By this anecdote, the professor of anthropology means that in reality, the idealization of food is specific to our societies. In the 80s, when Spain sought above all to be modern, white sugar was particularly appreciated, a purified, treated, elaborated product. But today we know what we eat, he continues. So, hence the vogue for natural, which is what is freshly picked, barely manipulated. Okay, so before food, we wanted it to be sanitized. Now we want it to be more natural. Food in principle has no ideology, that's obvious, but it can become symbolic. We eat what we are what we eat. In this regard, it would be more accurate to say we eat what we are rather than we are what we eat. So to take example, in 2022, someone on the far right will be eating more prime ribs than ever before because they are defending ranchers. Okay, eating more meat. They are shown there politically. If he is told that livestock farming is one of the sectors that produces most greenhouse gases, he will retort that it is an invention of the left-wing globalists who are campaigning for the 2030 agenda of the United Nations, asking for a sweet coffee with a churro, if I got that pronunciation correct, similarly unrefined sugar and avocado sourdough bread would be the preserve of pretentious city dwellers. So do you think you can... Is food left-wing, right-wing? What does it say? I think an awful lot more left people on the left would be, I would suppose, would be more vegan. Let's have a look. In the same vein, we can assume that during the 2019 legislative elections, the 326,000 votes that went to PACMA, the animalist party against animal abuse, corresponds to vegans. But not all vegans are animalists. Many of these movements are transversal to ideology. I can't pronounce it because I don't even think it. Ideologize a regime is a way of discrediting it. Okay. The Russian salad, when we rename it Kiev salad. Okay, yes. Yes, there was a movement. This happened in before, yes, and it mentions it down here. Naming different foods, giving it different names in order to politicize it. So we're all very familiar with a Russian salad, but now it's being named Kiev salad for some people. Also, Kiev, not long ago, was pronounced Kiev in English, but because that was the Russian pronunciation. And now people are asking to pronounce it Kiev, and now it's Kiev salad. So everything gets politicized. If in a restaurant you are offered a Kiev salad, there is no need to wave a Ukrainian flag in front of it. This is not the first time that this dish, invented in the 19th century by a Franco-Belgian chef, Lucien Olivier, has suffered such fate. Under Francoism, it had already changed its name and become the national salad or imperial salad. And it's not only the dish to have experienced such back and forth. The three cafeterias of the capital decided under George W. Bush to rename the fries known across the Atlantic under the name French fries, Freedom Fries. Yeah. So it was showing that the French didn't support the invasion of Iraq, so they decided to call them Freedom Fries instead of French fries. Anything else here that we can look at? Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but this is an article where food can decide, or you can tell if somebody's more left, more right in what they eat. I think you can. I think you can look at, well, maybe where people go can be quite common, but definitely I do feel that vegans are more leftist, seems to be, and that people in eating meat, not always, of course. I wouldn't say meat eaters are always on the right, but vegans definitely do seem to be more on the left. And what we're going to do before we go is move on. I wanted to look at these business quotes before we go. So these are things that can inspire entrepreneurs and go-getters Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Okay, so this might be seen as inspiration to carry on. If you have a project, it doesn't mean success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Okay, it's a good one. Play by the rules, but be ferocious. Phil Knight. Is it from Nike? The brand that, or Nike, if you're from the States. I say Nike. Do you say Nike or Nike for the brand? The brand that gave us Just Do It qualifies that tagline, which always felt a bit broad to include boundaries. You can't just do it without regard to the rules, as Nike clearly states. Those rules are what level the playing field and protect fair competitions. But rules have nothing to do with the passion in which you play within them. Play by the rules, but be ferocious. Phil Knight. An inspirational quote. Are these quotes inspirational? Are they corny? Like a bit, But they can be, I suppose, if you say it in the right way. Let's go and have a look at business opportunities are like buses. There's always another one coming. Okay, so if you've ever waited for public transport, you know that if you're lucky to have a car, or if you live in the city, I don't know if you're taking transport, but buses have a habit of coming in threes. Well, that would be a more negative outlook. I think what this one means is the buses will always come. They will always come one after another. Business opportunities are like buses. There's always another one coming. So don't get yourself down. Don't feel deflated. Don't feel demotivated. There will always be another business opportunity. You have to have a positive mental attitude. That's Richard Branson, who is going into space exploration with his Virgin business. Every problem is a gift. Without problems, we wouldn't grow. Anthony Robbins. Okay, we should look on problems as things that we can learn from. Without problems, we wouldn't grow. A lot of people get stressed by problems, but you need to see it as an opportunity to grow and learn. I see, I'm trying to get used to dealing with how to work with streaming and so on, and get used to technology. I'm kind of learning in a vacuum sometimes, but each problem can be just a small problem. It can take a long time, but then what happens is after one or two times, I become familiar with the problem and then I can quickly solve it. So it is an opportunity to grow in that sense. That's my small problem. But even here, doing this, I will look and take for myself. I'll look at the little problems I have, or the problems, and then try and improve on them. Let's go down to the next one. You only have a few things right in your life so long as you don't do too many things wrong. Warren Buffett. You only have to do a few things. Okay. You only have to do a few things right in your life so long as you don't have to do too many things wrong. Okay. It's a bit complicated. You only have to do a few things right in your life so long as you don't do too many things wrong. Okay. As long as, so long as. It's a good connector. What do you think? You only have to do a few things right in your life so long as you don't do too many things wrong. Okay. Let's see if we have an explanation here. The idea of right and wrong is a construct, of course, and it might feel overly simplistic to suggest that making the right choices will smooth the path forward. But the famous investor is merely noting that with this business quote that avoiding a wrong decision is as important as making the right one. Avoiding bad decisions is aided, of course, with careful planning. What do we have? Yes, careful planning or forward planning, as we mentioned before. Okay, so these are like inspirational quotes. Um, are you the type of person that likes the inspirational quote? Do you take comfort in them? Do they work for you? Um, I think I can be a bit sarcastic sometimes when it comes to inspirational quotes, but to be honest, they can work if you look at it. Why not? Why not? Some might work for you, some might not. You might be that type of person. If you look in your feed, in your LinkedIn feed, often you'll see some inspirational ideas. It might stick in your mind. Or do you see too many? Do you become immune to inspirational quotes? I think if you see some, or if you analyze them, it can mean more. But if you see so many, you become a bit tired, a bit fatigued by such all this motivational jargon or bombardment all the time. But a little can be useful. What I'm gonna do before we go is I'm gonna go back and just try and see. That was a bit complicated, that one. I want to go into. Did we go into culture? Let's have a look. We did go into culture, didn't we? I want maybe let's go into business. You never know. TikTok, always interesting. Abuse inside the daily hell of modern contractors on TikTok. Let's have a look. TikTok is the social media platform. A lot of people might consider it for younger people at the moment, but I'm sure, like Instagram, it will then become available. And I think you already can develop your business on TikTok, but so I would consider it. Inside the daily hell of modern contractors on TikTok, videos of suicide or cruelty to animals are part of the daily life of TikTok content moderators. Employees of the Majorel subcontracting company in the Middle East and North Africa expressed their psychological distress to Insider. Okay, so they have what you call moderators. These are the people checking what is being uploaded onto TikTok, because of course anybody with a TikTok account can upload any content, and it needs to be moderated. So they need people to look at what it is, and these guys are being affected. The economic information website Insider devotes an investigation to working condition of the small hands of the Chinese giant TikTok. African TikTok content moderators who for less than $3 an hour must review videos showing suicides or scenes of animal cruelty complain about being treated like robots. Yeah, it must be very stressful to have to look at a video to see if its content is if you can upload it. Let's have a look anyway. Imani25, a content moderator on the platform, has been haunted for 2 years by a video she had to watch. A young man throws a cat in the air before impaling it on a sword. She confides, I would never have imagined seeing such a scene in real life, but it wasn't a movie, it wasn't a joke, it was reality. So people doing terribly cruel things, somebody has to see it and they become deeply affected by this. They are a moderator. Often what you will have when you have live chats is you can have a robot or a bot moderator that will filter words. So if, for example, we're live now, and if someone comes on, I can create a bot or have a person helping me to, if somebody comes on and says bad words, we can filter that, we can kick them off, we can block them. But in TikTok, what they have is they have real people looking at these videos. At the moment, I'm sure in the future it will be done by bots, algorithms, and then the person can be blocked, or the account. In this case, we have people who are being affected. Mother of a young child, Imani, tried to create a wall between her and her job and her personal life. If at first she saw this job as a godsend is something that you're really grateful for. Let me just highlight it here. It's a godsend, something that really saved you. She was quickly disillusioned. Imani had no idea that this job would be so psychologically traumatic. She still feels the effects today. Well, you can imagine if you're a moderator, the things you see. I think as well, if you can imagine working as a criminal lawyer or a criminal judge and the things you have to see, it can be psychologically tormenting. Outsourcing abuse. Imani is not the only one in this situation. It is generalized, according to Insider, to all moderation outsourced, organized by Majorel. Majorel is the company that owns a Luxembourg-based company. It operates in the rapidly expanding sectors of North Africa and Middle East. 30% plus of TikTok users in 1 year, according to Insider. She also moderates Facebook content. Okay, so it's being out. This moderation is being outsourced to cheaper economies, cheaper countries, and that's what people generally do in business. If you have a successful business, if you're making clothes and you begin here in Spain, like Zara, for example, you then outsource to cheaper companies in North Africa or different parts of the world where it's cheaper. In Morocco alone, at least 9 content moderators still in post or having left say that they suffer from psychological problems because of their work. Still in post means still in the job, still working. Because in addition to being confronted with unbearable videos, employees have an almost impossible objectives to meet. In a work environment where surveillance is almost constant, sometimes for 12 consecutive hours, all while being paid less than $3 an hour. Obviously, life there is cheaper, but still $3 an hour. I wonder, because I get confused by this, because what does that mean in real terms? If you're being paid $3 an hour, how much does life cost there? What would that be here in Europe? Would that be the equivalent to earning €15 an hour, or $15 an hour, or 10 or 5? What does life cost in those countries? So I would like to see that in real terms, because of course, when I see $3 an hour, I'm going to think, well, that's awful, that's terrible. But please give it to me in real terms. What does that mean a month? How, I don't like this. I prefer to be a bit more clear. Now, what it also means is constant environment where surveillance is almost constant. Well, that's what we looked at. What surveillance is? Are they being, is it their bosses who are looking over their shoulders all the time, who are putting pressure on them? Do these people work with leaders or bosses? I would imagine they work with bosses who put strict rules upon them. Samira, who started in 2020, had to watch 200 she had to watch 200 videos an hour on which she had to put the correct report tags. His work was then compared to that of experienced content moderators who had watched the same videos. A few months after her arrival, she only had 10 seconds left to review a video. Okay, so a lot of pressure on these people to tag videos as okay, or when you flag something as you report it, you have to see where there is blood to tag gore. Gore is something gruesome or like bloody. And so this is quite interesting. It's from Insider, and it's about the pressure faced by these and the psychological trauma faced by people in these positions. Okay, that's TikTok. Often with these large companies, you do have to they're big corporations, and they're outsourcing, and it gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So there you go, guys. That was me streaming to you today in association with LK Formación, bringing tailor-made solutions to your business. LKformacion.com. Check out the website. I will be joining you again tomorrow morning. So have a great day at work. I hope this is helpful for you. If it has been helpful, just all I ask is follow or let someone else know that I am streaming to you guys, and very happy to to help you in any way I can. Feedback is always welcome. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.